I'd like to call everyone's attention and call this meeting to order. We have a number of guests tonight, so thank you for attending, everyone. And I just need a mover and a seconder to call the meeting to order. John Madsen and Bill Morton. Now therefore be it resolved that the meeting of March the 12th, 2004 be called to order at 6:02 p.m. All those in favor? Done.
All right.
Next item on the agenda is 2024-90. This is for the procedural bylaw. I need a move in a second, please. Grant and Councillor Latimer. Now therefore be it resolved that the procedural bylaw be suspended for the duration of this meeting. All those in favor? And that is, I'm in favor as well. That is carried. Next item on the agenda. Declaration of disqualifying pecuniary or conflict of interest. Are there any tonight? None?
None.
None? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda itself. Resolution 2024-91. Mover to second. And Councillor. The Corporation Municipality of Kelvin hereby approve the agenda as circulated. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. I'm in favor as well. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of previous minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Okay, Councillor and Councillor Latimer. Councillor Morton and Councillor Latimer. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation Municipality of Kelvin approves the meeting minutes of February the 27th, 2024. The hearing is circulated. Any comments before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is delegations. And there are none this evening. And then number 7 is 2024-93, the consent agenda items for information purposes. Everyone's had a chance to look over those. I just need a mover and a seconder. Okay, Councillor Madsen and Councillor Morton. And therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation Municipality of Kelvin hereby receive the consent agenda items circulated, less any items requested for separate review and discussion. All of those in favor. And that is carried unanimously. I'm in favor as well. So the next item on the agenda is Mr. Tom Gervais. He is making a presentation for the new OPP. So this is item 2024-94. Tom Gervais, welcome to the meeting. Can you hear us all right?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
I can. So please go ahead with your presentation.
Well, thank you, Mayor Gould. Well, as your agenda indicates, my name is Tom Gervais. I'm a police services advisor with the Inspectorate of Policing with the Ontario Ministry of the Solicitor General. And in that role, I've been providing, I've been monitoring police services boards and providing advice to boards and chiefs of police across Northern Ontario for a significant period of time. I currently have a relationship with the Matawan Area Joint Board that your municipality participates in. I've been asked to come and talk to council about some of the impacts of the coming into force of the Community Safety and Policing Act on April 1st of this year. It's been a long time coming, 10 years, actually, by my count. But the actual legislation in one way or another has been approved for going on 8 years. Some of the major impacts of that legislation for your municipality are these. One, under the new act, there's no longer a provision for OPP agreements for the provision of policing. Your municipality currently participates in a joint agreement with 3 other municipalities for the provision of policing. Under the new act, there's no provision for agreements. Essentially, the OPP provides policing by default. If it's not provided by a municipal police service or a First Nations police service, then the OPP provides adequate and effective policing. There is provision in the act for municipalities to enter into agreements for additional policing, but I'll leave it to the OPP Municipal Policing Bureau to inform your municipality about what they're willing to offer in terms of additional policing and whatever cost structure they're going to talk about. I'm not a member of the OPP, so I'm going to leave it to them to deal with that matter. So the new act requires that it puts in place a new governance structure for municipalities that are policed by the OPP, and establishes OPP detachment boards to capture every municipality and First Nation policed by the OPP. The act requires that there be at least one OPP detachment board per detachment. However, it left the door open for multiple boards. And after consultation with the municipalities in the North Bay detachment, the minister approved the formation of 3 OPP detachment boards, one of which your municipality is participating in with the municipalities of Mattawa, and Papineau Cameron. So it's the same group of municipalities as are participating in your current police services board will now participate in the OPP detachment board. But having said that, the new board's a very different creature. Your current board's essentially, well, it was formed by way of municipal resolution. It's a creature of municipal agreement and local municipal resolutions to form that board. The new board will be formed by way of provincial regulation, and specifically a Solicitor General's regulation, which is permitted under the Act. The composition of the board will be 6 seats. Each municipality will appoint 1 member of council. Well, each municipality will be designated as an appointing authority under the regulation that will form the board, and each municipality will appoint 1 member of council to the detachment board. The municipalities will be jointly responsible for appointing 1 community member. That's the term used to identify a person of your choosing who is not a member of council or an employee of any of your municipalities. And the provincial government will appoint 1 member by way of minister's appointment. Now, the joint appointment, I've been informed the language of the regulation will permit a number of options on how that appointment gets made, as long as you all agree to it. One option, I think, is probably might be the easiest and the most acceptable to you, is an option you're already familiar with. Your municipalities currently rotate responsibility for appointing members of council to the current board because there's only 2 seats and 4 municipalities. I'm suggesting one option for your municipalities would be to rotate the responsibility for appointing a community member. This will avoid having to, cobble together, 4 municipalities agreeing on a single person every time a new appointment has to be made. The terms of the appointments for the council members will be terms of council. Well, it'll be a period set by your council up to term of council. So if you choose to appoint for a shorter term, you can, but the appointment can't extend past the term of your current council. The community member can be for any term you choose, up to 4 years maximum. And the provincial member will be appointed to a term at the discretion of the minister. Right now, they're appointing members for a 3-year term. So there's been some changes in the act with respect to some considerations that your council will need to make in appointing a member of council, and however you choose to appoint or participate in the appointment of a community member. One of the considerations that the act requires to be made is to consider the need to ensure that the board is representative of the area served by the board in terms of the diverse population in the area. The council will also be required to consider the results of a police record check prepared within the last 12 months for potential appointees. So the implication of that is one, focusing on the police record check, is that council, through some mechanism, will need to have a consideration of the check, which means, for a member of council, presumably it would require a preliminary decision on, which of your members will sit on that board, the acquisition of the police record check, and then a mechanism for the consideration of that record check. And I'll leave it to, of course, it's, a council decision if council as a whole needs to consider the record check, or if council would prefer to delegate that consideration to a suitable staff member. But in any case, it has to happen prior to the appointment. There's been also some changes in the eligibility of members. There's a list of occupations and persons who are ineligible to sit that is the same as under the current Police Services Act. It includes judges, criminal defense lawyers, criminal prosecuting attorneys, members of the or I should say employees of the municipality. The addition is for former police officers. A former police officer who has not been out of the police service for less than a year is totally ineligible, cannot sit. A former member of the OPP is ineligible to sit on your OPP detachment board. However, a former member of a municipal police service is eligible to sit as long as they've been out for at least 1 year. The duties of the board will be roughly equivalent to that of your current board. The board is primarily an advisory board and will determine the objectives and priorities for policing in the municipality, and a few other duties. The board will participate in the selection of the detachment commander, monitor the performance of the detachment commander, and a few other things. The detachment commander is required to report to the board on policing. The act puts in place a new mandatory requirement for training for persons appointed to the board. The training will be delivered by the ministry through the Ontario Police College. It'll be e-learning and conducted at members' own speed, with the understanding that, well, with the requirement that members cannot assume their duties of office on the board until they've completed the training. So the appointment can be made, but they can't start performing their duties on the board until they complete the training. The plan is to have the training up and running before the end of the month. In which case, if your council has made an appointment to the board, that member can then engage the training at their own speed and then start working, setting up the new board. There's no cost to the training. The board will be required to submit an estimate to each of the participating municipalities on the cost of operating the board and exercising its duties. The municipalities have an option to dispute the budget estimate if they choose to. If one of the municipalities chooses to dispute it, it goes to an established arbitration process operated by the Ontario Police Arbitration and Adjudication Commission. But if there's no dispute, then each of the municipalities is required under the act to pay its share of the board's operating costs. The regulation allocating the costs amongst the municipalities has been posted to the Ontario Regulatory Registry for consultation. The final regulation is in the process of being prepared. It has not yet been issued, but the plan is for there to be an equal allocation of expenses, unless your municipalities unanimously agree to some other mechanism to allocate the expenses. That'll be one of that can be a local decision. If there's an objection to it, then if you can work out a mutually agreeable, unanimous method for allocating the expenses other than equal shares, then that option will be open to you. And okay, the anticipated main cost drivers for the new board, in my view, based on my experience with existing boards, and that would be existing OPP Section 10 boards, including your own, would include, well, probably the major expense will be the acquisition of some type of administrative support for the board. The board is capable of making its own decision on where to acquire that administrative support. I'll leave it to, one of the options is to acquire that support from one of your municipalities if you're willing to provide it, or engage with one of your municipal employees who perhaps could have the skills and abilities to do it and to provide it on their own time. But any option that the board chooses to use, the costs, will be allocated through the budget estimate process. So no one municipality will, unless you want to, bear the full cost of the administrative support. The only other potential operating expenses that I can see are whatever incidental expenses are necessary for the holding of meetings. You could look at, the operations of your current board for some idea of how that might work. If the board needs to rent meeting space or whatever, right? So, I'm not seeing the operating costs of the board, which, is required to hold a minimum of 4 meetings a year, which I believe is likely the practice of your current joint board. If the board chooses to hold more meetings in a year, which it could, then it might drive some of the incidental expenses up marginally. But I just personally don't see the operating expense of the board being onerous. So I think that touches on every aspect of what's coming your way that I wanted to get to. I know my time's short. I see you've got a full agenda. So I'll open it to questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Gervais. If I can, before I open this up for discussion, I would like to get a mover and a seconder for Resolution 2024-94 to discuss this report. Okay, Morton and Councilor Manson. So now therefore be it resolved that the council is in receipt of Tom Gervais, Solicitor General's Office presentation of the new OPP detachment and board structure. So I'll open this up to questions for Mr. Gervais. Councilor Grant.
I simply have one question. I think you answered. I just want to clarify on the cost. You said it will be set up as an equal share amongst the members. So each municipality would cover an equal share of the cost.
That was the way he had mentioned that they would set it up, but it could be changed if it was mutually agreed upon by all 4 municipalities.
Yeah, which would likely be difficult.
Yes. Is that?
Yeah.
Any other questions from the floor? No?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Hi, Tom. I know that we've talked a number of times for the audience and council members who weren't privy to those calls and conversations, and thank you for taking the time to do that. And for our audience members, I have a couple of questions. First, can you describe the purpose of this new board? In even all the correspondence that comes across, that's not really clear. Why do we have this police OPP detachment board today?
All right, well, that's a big question. First off, the provincial government made a policy decision to extend some form of police governance over the OPP, every municipality policed by the OPP across the province. So there are many municipalities that don't have policing agreements. They don't have boards. They're policed under Section 5.1 of the current Police Services Act. So there's no governance structure there. The detachment commander may report to council, but it's not set out in law, and it's not an acceptable method. There's no actual governance. So a decision was made in order to set up governance, bring in the extra, I think it was about 280 municipalities across the province that did fall under the governance structure. They didn't have OPP policing agreements or boards. The OPP detachment board model was landed on, and it was set up both to capture every municipality, to provide an opportunity for every municipality to participate in that board if they chose to do so. Many have not. But also mindful to the burden on the OPP detachment commanders reporting to multiple boards. So there was an effort both to bring in the municipalities into the governance structure without, creating an additional, 100 boards or 150 boards. So as a result, the current 110 Section 10 boards will be dissolved. In their place, though, there will be a little over 80 OPP detachment boards, but every municipality and First Nation in the province will be captured by those boards. The primary function of the boards are to advise the detachment commander on the objectives and priorities for policing in the catchment area of the board. For your board, it will be with 4 municipalities. And however the board chooses to do that, I think there's a high degree of comfort, between your current board and the OPP detachment commander on that very function. Your current board currently discharges that duty with the detachment commander. So the new board will continue on with that with some additional strengthening in the requirements for the OPP detachment commander to report to the board and provide useful information. And the financial structure to actually fund the board, which doesn't currently exist in the act. So did I answer your question, Don?
Great, thanks. Sorry, I'm just going based on other things that I've heard from people. So the board operating costs, does that include the per diem participation amount of the provincial appointee?
It does not. The remuneration for the provincial appointee will be decided by your municipalities. It won't be decided by the province. So whatever amount you choose to pay this person will be your decision. And then the whatever amount you choose to pay this person will be allocated again equally amongst your municipalities. So
Yes, then it is the cost of the board through its operating funds.
it's separate. It's treated separately and distinct from the board's operating costs because it only captures the provincial appointee, and presumably you'll be paying in some way the other members that you're going to appoint to the board. But again, that's entirely your decision. The
Okay.
provincial government saw only fit to regulate paying the people that we appoint.
And time is of the essence here, and we mentioned a few times about appointing community members and getting buy-in from, and even the method of appointing that, whether it be a rotational or one person. So this is prior to the new board coming on, councils must agree to that process and that appointee or that method, depending on the process they choose. So councils, not the existing board, correct?
That's correct. Yes. The existing board is not a party to this and does not make the decisions. Of course, the existing board is free to make whatever recommendations it chooses to, but it's all a matter. It's all council decisions.
Okay, and in the same vein that the new board submits its budget to the ministry for and just to the ministry, councils have an opportunity to say they disagree. So the right way to do this would be that the new board should submit its budget to councils prior to submitting it to the ministry, because as you say, any council can disagree with the budget and then has to appeal it, correct?
No, I need to clarify that. If I said the board submits to the ministry, that's an error. The board does not submit a budget estimate to the ministry. The board submits a budget estimate to all of the participating municipalities. So the ministry, the provincial government is not a party to the operating costs.
Okay, and final question, I promise. The old board wind up. I know that there's some question out there amongst board members today. That essentially, not unlike a business, they need to wind up and close down, including bank accounts, correct?
Yeah, the existing board will be dissolved, either by way of transitional regulation by the provincial government or by council, by way of council resolution, but one way or the other, it'll be resolved. I'm sorry, dissolved. So I would recommend the current board, make some decisions on disposing of any current assets it might have. Bank accounts, and make a decision on disposing of its records.
Just any last questions then, Councilor Moore?
We could spend all night on this, but, and I don't want to.
No?
Most of my questions, I think it should be dealt with personally. It'll get to, think about dissolving the board and, if one thing about money though, is the current police act says that there's a remuneration required, there's an amount required. And you're saying now that the amount that the provincial appointee or other board members would receive is dependent on the council's decision. The current act says that it's like, I think it's a minimum, an honorarium of $100 a year.
The current act, regulation under the current act, again, only applies to the provincial appointees, to the Mattawa board. And it's like $150 a year or something like that, some nominal amount. So in the consultation process, we couldn't land on a dollar figure, so it's entirely within your control.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Any last questions? Well, then, I thank you, Mr. Gervais, for your report. And I will call this to a vote to accept the reports and the presentation by Mr. Gervais. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. Again, thank you, Mr. Gervais. We appreciate your time today.
If I may, I'll wait until I see the next item on your agenda in case some questions arise on that.
Right, certainly. So the next item on the agenda is 8.1.12, which is the appointment of a council member to the Police Services Board. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Manson and Councillor Grant. Okay, so this is a resolution to appoint someone to the board, and I'm going to open this up for discussion. Councillor Manson, you're first up.
Well, I would look to the incumbent if he had an interest first naturally, but I don't at the same time want to apply pressure to said incumbent in that role. So that would be a logical look for me. I don't really have a question other than that comment.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Councillor Grant?
I have maybe we should ask who is interested before we move into appointing somebody.
Great idea. Is there anyone interested in the appointment to the police board?
I'm only delaying because I'm on a lot of things. I'm sharing it, and this is a dog's breakfast, as you all know. It's, since I took over, got a secretary quit, and this has changed, and like it's been nothing but a headache for the whole time. I've got 10 years worth of records sitting in my garage waiting to get either burned or destroyed. I'm currently the secretary and treasurer of the thing because there's nobody else.
Well, I think what you're telling us is that you're evidently qualified.
But I'm a retired policeman, so I don't know.
Well, he said 1 year have to be retired at minimum and not on the OPP, and I think you qualify for both.
I mean, I would consider it. But, you know, I mean, I would consider that appointment.
Okay.
And, if someone else took a strong interest, you know, at a later date. You know, so just, we can put a name on a paper if it's got some interest.
Hoping that the new board will have a returning chairman come back that will take the bull by the horns and straighten things out.
All right, so far we have, Councillor Grant as the, only interested councillor at this point in time. Any other comments from anybody else? No?
At a future date, I would consider maybe giving Councillor Grant relief. I think there's a minimum term, or I think there was some mention of rotating that
I think
membership
that
out, right?
I'm got back to council and
Absolutely.
have a discussion at that point as well.
When he
And,
retires.
So, you know, I don't think it's an appointment that is not, it
It's not written.
couldn't be, yes, by council decision, could not be.
So, Councillor Grant, are you saying you're putting your name forward?
I am putting my name forward, and see how that works.
All right, so we will call this resolution.
You have an bill based on Tom's,
Yes, I'll read the whole thing. The council for the municipality of Calvin hereby appoints Councillor Grant as the municipality's member representative to the new policing service board that comes into effect April the 1st. That's April Fool's Day, Councillor Grant. To 2024 for the remaining 2022 to 2026 term of council, and delegates the consideration of this council member dependent on the outcome of a police records check as required by the Solicitor General.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor? All right,
Never thought about that.
We'll see.
I'm in favor as well, so that is carried unanimously. Congratulations, Councillor Grant. To Teresa? You pass that to Teresa, please.
That's a question, for the last.
I-
Records.
He did mention it.
No, I know you have to have them, but who pays for it?
we do.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we passed the resolution, but there's no other questions, so we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Gervais. It looks like we're good to go.
You're very welcome. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the municipality of Calvin strategic plan meeting date. Just, I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Manson and Councillor Morgan. And just before we move into this discussion, I do have to say that there is a very important meeting that all mayors have to attend on March the 22nd. So I would not be available on that particular date. And we're looking at changing that date to April the 5th. So is there any discussion on this resolution?
That April 5th date looks great because I couldn't do the 22nd and I was disappointed in that.
Oh, good, perfect. Any other discussion? No?
Me.
All right, Council for the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin desires to review the municipality's 2022 to 2026 strategic plan and set its own objectives for the remainder of the council's term. Now therefore be it resolved that the special meeting will be held on April the 5th to review the message of council, vision and mission statements, goals and objectives. All those in favor?
Time.
All day. Okay, that is, I'm in favor as well, and so that is carried. Teresa, did you note the change? All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the support to the municipality of Calvin's resolution 2024-31. This is item 8114. I just need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Latimer is seconded and Councillor Morton moved the motion. So I'm sure you've all had a chance to look through these items. Is there any discussion?
Nope,
Councillor Latimer? No?
nope.
Okay, well, I will say I'm really happy that we had this many responses. This is an item moved by this council to put pressure on the federal and provincial governments to do more for firefighters and to do more for forest fire protection for our area and the rest of Ontario. And we put the motion forth, and as you can see, it's been picked up by many municipalities. They're all in the agenda. And that's a good reflection on what we're doing here in council and how it's being received provincially. So kudos to everyone here. So now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation and Municipality of Calvin is pleased to receive correspondence in support of Resolution 2024-31 regarding federal and provincial funds, national firefighting strategy for many municipalities throughout Ontario. So all those in favor of receiving this motion? I am as well, so that is carried. Next item on the agenda is brought forth by Councillor Latimer. This is the Municipality of Calvin Road Use Agreement. So that is moved by Councillor Latimer. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Morton. All right, so the floor is to you, Councillor Latimer, as you move the motion.
Thank you. The municipality doesn't have a policy in place now, but we need one that is thorough and detailed to give our staff clear direction, as well as present residents with a fair and understandable process. And to do that, we need input from legal, insurance, and planning professionals. As I said, we don't have one now. It leaves us in a difficult, and especially our staff, in a challenging position. That's
Good.
That's the end of my
Comments.
speech.
Thank you,
Comments.
Councillor Latimer. Anybody else? Comments? Discussion? Councillor Manson.
I do agree that there's simplicity, but there's a lot of complication. Doubles in the details, as usual with something like this, where it's not necessarily, it would be nice to have a cookie cutter, one size fits all, but it may not be the case. It may need to be some one-offs for certain scenarios. I was poking around looking for something online, and I happened to find going back to 2016 of the Calvin Ad Hoc Roads Committee, which existed back then. I just happened to see a roadmap on there. At that point, 2016, it said there were 66.5 total road kilometers in Calvin. And of that, 4.1 were seasonal, and they were it's at 0.9, Pratt 1.6 kilometers, Latimer at 0.7, Floods at 0.9. Maybe that's different now than 2016, but I wouldn't imagine it being terribly different, but I don't know that for sure. seems like a very small amount of of seasonal roads relative to the total. So when we're looking at various things like creating a road agreement policy, you know, I would like to have council have some input in that framework. So maybe Councillor Latimer's approach to send this to legal and planning first, and then come back to council to fine tune the framework might be the approach. I would have thought, you know, I've had the idea of building that framework and then seeking approval. Either way, it's gonna, you know, come around to the same answers. So as long as we get some, I think it's our role to give direction here on items like that. It's partly why we're here, and then get the advice of the professionals. So those are my thoughts. I think that I view if someone has if there's a full-time residence on a road, if the total is only 4K, this whole township, but we look at getting agreements, look at people, they're paying taxes. When I moved here, I'm paying taxes in my view for landfill. Those are my personal priorities. People are gonna have different priorities. I think with becoming, like, we need to grow this community in terms of new development. That lowers our taxes. People leaving increases our taxes. Lowers the tax base, increases the tax base. It's important to. So a friendly road policy to allow development, and if someone to allow them to have year-round access, have fire protection. I think it's exceedingly important for growth. I think we should get this done, and I can support this resolution, but I do want to see some input, council input at some point along this process. I think that's very important.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manson. I should mention that we have Steve MacArthur here today. And he's from Tollicott Engineering. Last time you were before this council, you were with MPAC, but now you're with Tollicott Engineering, and your presentation with MPAC was really good, and I know everybody here really appreciated that. So he's here to answer any questions you might have about roads as well. So I'm going to open it back up again to discussion and questions, and just, if you don't mind, Steve, if they have any questions, to put you as well. So Councillor Grant, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I just have 2 points to add into the resolution. And one is that, you know, big picture, you know, rigid regulation will kill development. And I think that these decisions on these agreements, I think, can be made and should be made by council to allow flexibility. They're not easy decisions, but they allow enough flexibility that we can, you know, not kill development. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have a rigid policy, you have a developer that comes in and wants to, you know, you can kill the little guy maybe just because it doesn't fit the policy, but you know, something comes in and all of a sudden council's going to want to work outside the policy and get that done. Right. And so I think that, you know, that's fine. It's up to, I think it should be a council. I think there is a sort of policy. It's got its two needs in Calvin. And, you know, the last election, we moved away from, actually I ran a campaign on, you know, making decisions that fit Calvin, not a big city. So something to consider as we're moving forward. And, you know what, I forgot my last, so it couldn't have been that important. But, you know, I just.
Councilor Grant, I
Be
will,
careful with this one.
I really agree with your point that it has to agree with Calvin, and I go back to the resolution we just passed about this strategic plan, and that's sort of where we have to discuss what has to happen moving forward. And certainly those comments are going to really reflect into that strategic plan and what we're going to do moving forward. There's also another resolution coming up that Councillor Manson has requested be brought forward, and that addresses that as well. So,
I didn't remember my.
oh, good.
Well, thanks.
I was trying to give you some
You
time.
were giving me some time. It was just cost, you know, and I think that it's super important to look at the history of Calvin. And Calvin was, you know, was created without a lot of experts. Like what we see today, these roads, I mean, I'm not saying there weren't experts, but every single time something came up, it wasn't necessarily, hey, you know, let's get an engineer or lawyer. Now I understand that, you know, the times are different, litigation's high, but there has to be a reasonable level of acceptance of liability. Otherwise we'll bankrupt the ratepayers and experts, you know? And, especially when it's, you know, like this big of an issue, maybe in a big picture, a small issue in a big picture. So I just want to be aware and cognizant of costs. And so a policy, and a process and a bylaw could help us, I believe, should help us reduce, I would say, what council deems to be maybe unnecessary costs.
Okay,
So
thank
we're
you.
not repeating.
Sure. Thank you for your comments. So if there's no other discussion, I'm
Could I
sorry, Steve.
speak to
Oh, please.
that, please? I'm in favor of development as well, but regulated development, and saying we do have no policy is a policy. It's like no answer is an answer. If you don't answer it, what is our policy today? How do we hand these things out? How do we give residents a road maintenance agreement? What's it based on? It's really based on nothing. An opinion, a feeling, perhaps knowing the right people. I think we really do need a policy. How we get there, this is one suggestion. You know, it's not hard and fast. But in this day and age, we do need the opinion of experts. And I don't believe we have the expertise on council in legal or insurance or planning to develop it. It has to be approved by council, of course. And then there's the opportunity to comment on what comes back.
All right, thank you, Councilor Lambert. Councilor Grant, you have a.
Yeah, just to further a slight discussion. I think it's to we discount ourselves as counselors and our level of expertise. It might not be in, or, you know, we're elected as, you know, I guess professional politicians, I suppose, and the whole is to us to be able to make difficult decisions that are in the best interests of, you know, our municipality and our people, and for us to, you know, as a group, not as individuals, as a group, to not, you know, not make decisions based on favoritism, these things. And I think that we are experts at that, and then that's what we're here to do. So I just want to make sure that we, you know, fulfill that role when we need to, and not delegate it.
All right, oh, sorry, we're going around, let's start to wrap it up here, but go ahead, Councilor Ward.
I agree with all of the comments being made, but much similar to what, when we send something back to the lawyer for advice, or we go to the integrity commissioner for the legal point of view, or the whoever, as Robert suggests, have somebody official give us advice, and then we can make those decisions based on a little bit more official support.
Okay.
If I might.
Yes, please.
From a staffing perspective, I appreciate, Councillor Latimer, your motion being brought forward, because there is no answer when people call us to say, what is the process? We don't have a process. And how did the last one get approved? Don't know, came in front of council. Well, there, you know, and you don't hear what we hear on the telephone when people say, well, that shouldn't have been approved, or this is what the agreement says, and why can't I do this when the agreements, the ones I have seen, they contradict each other in a number of ways. And there is no process, so I do appreciate that, and in the end, it is council's decision on whether or not to grant an agreement. I don't believe that your motion is taking that away. I think that, you know, Councillor Grant, to your cookie cutter approach, this will allow that to happen more than it does today. Because with having some clear policy and guidelines in place to dictate the process, and I do mean dictate the process, then at least council will be looking at things in a fair fashion that look the same, so that an agreement might look the same, no matter who it is and what they're coming back. Right now, we have a mishmash of agreements that are never monitored, by the way. No one ever monitors agreements. We have signs that have not been put up where yet the agreement says a sign's put up before you get an agreement. We have agreements that say that roads are going to go out and monitor that you are maintaining. Nobody goes out and monitors that they are maintaining. So in my opinion, from a staff perspective, when these complaints come to us or these inquiries come to us, having a process in place and council continues to approve agreements or not, whether those agreements or what you approve is in line with the recommendations that will come forward, that's your decision.
Thank you. All right, well, everyone's had a chance to address the motion. I'd like to call us to a vote now. I won't read the entire resolution, but at the very end, that in the absence of any process, policy, or bylaw that outline the circumstances under which council will receive or consider requests for seasonal road use or maintenance agreement for municipal roads not maintained all year long by the municipality, the staff be directed to research and report to council before August 2024 guidelines and policies and the conditions under which council might consider such requests. To protect the municipality's liability in the consideration of such requests, it is understood this research will be comprehensive and will necessitate staff collaboration with our insurer, planner of record, and legal departments. All those in favor of this resolution? And that is carried unanimously. I'm in favor as well. So carried. Thank you very much. Good discussion. The next item on the agenda is the Tulloch Engineering Limited Service Rural LSR rezoning. Now, do I need a mover and seconder before we discuss this, or?
No, it's good.
Okay, then we'll just turn it right over to you.
Maybe by way of introduction though, Steve, to help you out a little bit, this is coming back from a past council meeting where the time the Silverthorn on Latimer Lane, that we decided to go forward with that one alone and to bring the rest of them forward at a future date. And here we are at a future date with Tulloch Engineering here to answer questions about that process. And here we are with 4 that have been identified as they were missed in the this is not new, so go ahead from here.
Thank you very much, Donna, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree, great discussion on the previous item. And this, I believe, dovetails with that item. It's important. And I'm encouraged to hear words like clear policy and guidelines and those types of things that you're seriously looking at. And I've been around Calvin now for over a decade in various representations, and I know how much turnover there has been, both of staff and of council over time. And sometimes these things need to be looked at again, and here we are. Part of that discussion is the limited service rural zoning designation. And the intent of that is to identify these properties that in our professional land use opinion are not appropriately zoned at this point for what is being provided to those property owners. It's in no way intended to diminish the value of their property or try and hamper control so much what's going on in the property is to recognize the situation that these properties are in, whether it's in these seasonal roads, on open road lines, whatever it is that's caused us to consider an in-house housekeeping amendment to rezone these to limited service rural. It's simply, in our opinion, best practice. It's been done in most municipalities, and there are properties, of course, within Calvin that are zoned that way. We were asked to kind of review ones that would fit into that criteria or more appropriately fit into the criteria, the LSR. And we brought forward the ones that are listed, I believe, in your report. So, it's really as part of the due diligence that you're doing as council to look at these issues and look at these things. That's our recommendation to look at these properties. I believe as the mayor introduced me as a former MPAC employee, I can answer the question that's come up from at least one property owner as to the impact on their property taxes and their value of their property. MPAC values the access to a property, and that is true, whether it is, but it doesn't get down to the minutia of exactly what that access is. So if it's accessed by road, it's valued in one way. If it's accessed by water, it's valued in another. If it's an island property, it's valued in another way. So the value change, if any on an LSR would likely see a slight potential decrease depending on the quality of the road that they're accessing the property from. But in the absence of something significant, I doubt there would be any change to any of the assessed values on these properties.
Steve, if I might just add to that, I did have a discussion with Paula Cunningham, your previous manager, quite a while ago now, some months ago, and she did confirm the same, that the type of road was one of about 200 considerations in that minutia of other things that are weighed into the value of a home. So when I said, if LSR is there or isn't there, would there make a difference? And she said it would be one of over 200 other pieces of criteria that would make that difference.
That is correct. We regularly, within the MPAC office, receive zoning bylaw amendment updates from the municipalities. And they had no one-to-one direct correlation to the value of the property.
So basically, Steve, if I may ask, an LSR property is any property that is not accessed directly or can be accessed directly by a full year-round maintenance road, correct?
It's correct. In summary, correct. It's where the idea is that emergency vehicles, school buses and those types of things cannot make it to the property, and it's acknowledged through the zoning designation that is the case.
And it just means that the fire department knows that this property, they're going to make an effort to reach it if they can, but there is a chance that they might not be able to reach that property.
And by extension, the insurance companies and the companies that service the property, that is accurate. Yes.
All right. Thank you for your report so far. I guess I need a mover and a seconder before we discuss this. So could I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution, please? Councillor Manson and Councillor Morton. Is there any questions for Steve, or is there any discussion on the resolution? Councillor Manson.
Thank you very much for clarifying some of these points, Steve. Two-part question. First part, I don't know about this, and I was looking earlier, I couldn't really find anything definitive about it, but if you have a property that is zoned residential, and then you make this change, I'm going to call this a downgrade because you're removing two services, really. You're saying that we're not plowing in the winter and we're not, we're not promising fire services. So you suggested that in the impact valuations, it doesn't really have much of an impact on the valuation. But to me, when I look at that, I say, tax rate. If someone's services are being reduced, should there not be a separate tax rate reflecting that reduction in service if the valuation isn't really impacted, because that's another way for taxes to decline. So if it's not, if relief isn't coming via impact valuation adjustment, then do other municipalities, and this may be out of your wheelhouse, but maybe not, do other municipalities ever get a LSR rate versus a regular rate?
Feel like I need to take my tele jacket off and put on my old impact outfit. But the two parts, so when I said there's no one-to-one correlation, we have the Assessment Act in Ontario and the Planning Act. And so those decisions on the zoning designations are made under the Planning Act. The Assessment Act looks at highest and best use of the property. Most, if I'm not mistaken, and Donna can correct me, all of the properties we're looking at this evening are already developed. So they look at the land, the building, the structure, the access, and value it on that. Okay, so there, when I say there should be zero impact on the assessed value of the zoning change, it's accurate. It's just a way of protecting the municipality by acknowledging that we can't get a fire truck to you. And you know, this is part of what you're trying to do in terms of policy and guidelines. The second question about tax rates, you have limited ability to pass special tax rates, as Donna can probably jump in on. So you don't have, my understanding, unless things have changed in the year that I've been through impact, you do not have the ability to pass a special tax rate for LSR zoned properties.
And if I might also, these 4 addresses are not going to see a reduction in services. It is the reality of today. And when the planning document was created, these 4 properties were not identified as LSR. So they will not see a reduction in services. Today, they are not serviced and they're maintained.
I understand what you're saying. Thank you. The other part of my question is under, we've had some discussion earlier about getting some clarity on road policy. We have strategic plan meeting coming up. I wonder if these properties here, before we go through the process of changing the zoning, does it appear likely that any of these properties will be impacted by some of this, the road policy and strategic plan? Again, circling back to there's less than 10, there's only 4. In 2016, the ad hoc road committee reported there was 4.1 kilometers of seasonal road in the whole municipality, which seems fairly small to me. So when I look at this, I'm like, oh, well, you know, if each one of these is like Latimer Lane was dealt with, it's 0.7, and that road agreement was organized, the LSR organized for that. Is there a possibility that we tap the brakes on this if any of these properties look like they'll be self-resolving in terms of road access over the next 6 months? Because we wouldn't want to jump through that process to reverse it.
If I may answer that, we did have a couple of complaints from existing properties that are labeled as LSR, who then said, well, we're listed as an LSR property. Why are these other properties not listed? And why is that fair? And I think that's very true. There are just down the road from these properties, there are other properties that are LSR. And the reason that they're LSR is one, because of the municipality's liability in dealing with those properties, but there's also the sale. If someone sells a property, and it's LSR, then they know they're buying an LSR property. So if we tap the brakes and someone sells the property, then we're doing a disservice to those people. And we're also doing a disservice to the people that are currently LSR that are saying, well, why is our property LSR and this property isn't? It's on a seasonal road. I'm on a seasonal road. You have to be fair. And I hope that answers your question. Steve?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and excellent point. Since the pandemic, we've seen a proliferation of people moving from southern Ontario into these areas. I'm sure Calvin has experienced that as well. And when they move here, they expect a level of service, right? And we've seen it many, many times, not just in this municipality, but across Northern Ontario. Where's my internet? Why aren't you plowing my road? Why, and there's all of these things, as the mayor has rightly pointed out, that if that is designated as an LSR property, as a buyer, when reviewing that with your lawyer, that what you're buying. It outlines that through designation. So it's just, again, this council seems to be taking the right steps to tighten up policy and guidelines. This is another way of doing it. And being fair in those properties, right? In consideration of those properties.
And if I might add, if at some point that there is a change in the designation of the road, then immediately that property then becomes non-LSR. So that's the second part of your question.
Just to cap it off, I think if we look at the motion, the reason they're being rezoned, is that they lack public road frontage maintained year round. So unless, to your point, Councillor Manson, unless we plan to give access to make these properties so that they have public road frontage year round, then they are currently LSR and fire can't get to them. Emergency vehicles can't get to them. We would be doing them a disservice by not letting fire know ahead of time, as an example, that these properties, you can't get to them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, just to further cap that off, and I'll address this to our fire chief. If there is a fire and it is on a seasonal road and the road is open and it's passable, the fire department would still go to that house. Am I correct? Yes. And it's just a matter of, because it's seasonally maintained and it's up to the resident to maintain it themselves. If they're away for 2 weeks prior to and they haven't plowed the driveway, then you can't get there if that house gets on fire. Whereas if it's a township road, the township has a legal liability to maintain that road. And that's the real difference between the two situations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? None? No? All right, so I'll call this to a vote. Moved by Councillor Manson, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin directs Tulloch Engineering to proceed through the steps to rezone these properties in the township that should be zoned limited service residential LSR, as they lack public road frontage maintained year round. The following properties have been identified through a preliminary review. They're listed in the agenda, and shall additional properties be identified through this review by Tulloch Engineering, they should also be subject to rezoning process at this time. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much for the discussion. Next item on the agenda is moved by Councillor Manson, and this is 2024-100, and this is I guess I should speak to this, but I need to move her in a second. Or seconder, I need it for this motion. Okay, Councillor Morrison. All right, so Councillor Manson asked that this resolution be brought forward from the last meeting. Boy, this is a big one, Councilor Manson, and I think you were right to request that this be brought forward. This particular resolution is regarding the MNR's Crown Land disposition. Yeah, disposition in northern municipalities. So as promised, I did contact the MNR and I did talk to the two people as our contact person, and they have sent me all kinds of information which I will forward on to council, but I'll just call up here. John Mark of the MNRF, and I spent some time on the phone today. And apparently how this program works is if we as council designate a property that is currently Crown land that we wish to purchase, the municipality of Calvin can purchase this property. When we purchase this property, we have to have a plan for development of the property. So we have to be in touch with a group that we would have to create in council to create a plan to develop, let's say, a 100-acre lot. So for example, I see Donna has given me and handed out to everyone the available Crown land. And I'll just use this as an example. On the bottom of Bronson Lake Road, there is a 100-acre Crown lot there. If you go down Highway 630 and then keep going south, you'll see that green lot. The township could buy that 100-acre lot, and we would have to pay fair market value for that lot. So it's going to be appraised at what a 100-acre vacant piece of land is worth. Now that's on a full round access road, so no road would have to be built. And then we could divide that up into 10-acre lots and have them developed as residential lots to increase the population and the tax base of the township. But it's not just a matter of, okay, get out your checkbook and write a check for $100,000 and pay for $100,000 worth of surveys. We have to have a complete and viable plan as to how that's going to be developed. So that's going to take, well, a big task force within the township, and probably a lot of research by council members such as yourself, John, to start working on how we might develop that particular lot. Now that particular lot is not a really good retail lot because it's on a gravel road, and you would probably be better with something that was closer to lakefront and closer to a little bit better road, closer to the highway or what have you. So you can see there's a lot of green in the township. The CAO and I talked about this a little bit. There is a regulation if you're on waterfront that there can't be any lake trout around, or else they'll deny the application. And we would have to have full access to the lakefront to make the property viable. But if you developed at some place, and there is some lots around the bottom end of Smith Lake, I believe there are 2 Crown Acre lots. Again, no road coverage there. So somebody's going to have to force a road in and pay the huge amount of money. Now you were talking, Councilman Manson, about it's only 7/10 of a mile. I looked at a private drive, 7/10 of a mile, and was quoted $100,000. So it's when you're talking about a municipal road, 66-foot clearance, you might be talking $500,000. So this is a big project, but it's something worth looking at. Because right now, it is available for this municipality to buy that crown land. The process is, we identify the crown land that we want to buy. We identify how we're gonna develop it. We identify what residential growth there will be from that property, because that's what this program is all about, is increasing residential growth. More homes for more people, et cetera. And we have to do a lot of work to get there.
Is there a time limit?
There isn't as of right now, but I'm sure there will be.
on development?
Oh, I did ask that because I had been told that you had to have it developed within 2 years. He said, no, there is no time as of yet. But you do have to have some development plan. You can't just buy it and keep it in the township coffers. There has to be a housing development in place here. Councillor Grant, you had a question?
Well, I just had an overall comment about the township becoming a developer.
Mhm.
And developers are very efficient at what they do, and that's how they turn a profit.
Mhm.
And if the township gets in the business of development, it's unlikely, with all the experts that we would have to consult, that we would see any profitability. In fact, we'd likely take a loss, but it could be future profitability based on taxes, but you know, I just think it's interesting.
But we can get a developer involved in this.
Well, we would have to,
We'd have,
in my opinion,
Mhm.
otherwise it wouldn't make much sense.
It would have to be a joint venture. Like we would be the purchaser, but they would be the developer.
correct.
Sure, well, that sounds logical, just your explanation kind of made it sound like this. Really take.
I'm sorry.
The whole thing.
Yeah,
You do.
well, they can,
Is-
from what I'm told, we can have a developer work with us.
Yeah,
Yes,
you can't just sell it to the developer then to develop.
no, the municipality has to be involved.
And then one last question, I think it was answered, sorry, I was thinking, the time, like this, so you're talking about time limit of development, what about time limit of program? So you talk about that, like this is just open,
Mhm.
There,
like, you know, if we wanted to be, did this after creating a strategic plan, you know, a year, 2 years from now,
or during the strategic
you
plan.
know, is that something though that we can be, that seems to be open for a future term?
It seems to be open at this point because everything I've read has not said by such a, but I mean, that doesn't mean that at some point in time.
Could I, go ahead, Bill? Councillor Morton?
Robert, you haven't spoken much.
No. I think this is a good topic for our strategic planning session. But also, there's a lot of undeveloped land in Calvin Township, and that is on municipal roads. And you know, we could, part of our strategic planning could include this, as well as educating some of the people in the township who own land, who may be cash poor and land rich, how to sever their land. There's a good discussion on development and Crown land. It may not really apply to Calvin Township, but it's a good topic for our strategic planning session.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Morton?
Well, it marries it. You mentioned the homes program, the provincial government's putting up, and on the Conservation Authority. Actually, last year, we were told that we have to identify conservation land for homes. So it marries a program.
Yes, yes. And I should also mention that I left out a number of things. I will forward the email on to you so that you can all do your own research. But there are other things I have to look at. If we are going to buy a piece of property to develop, there's environmental assessment done on the property, same thing as any other plan. And if it doesn't meet, you can't buy the property. And there has to be communication with both the Algonquin, the in to make sure that it doesn't conflict with any plans. So there are some hurdles that have to be jumped through, but as you said, Councilor Manson, you wanted to look at this as a project, so that's all I'm doing is presenting you with the information. Comments, questions? No?
I agree with Councillor Grant's thoughts. Us trying to develop property, it's not our business. We have enough other things to do, but partnering with a developer and just bringing them on board as to partner and guide each other through the process. I believe this program is also open to individuals that can, not just the municipality and perhaps not even with the blessing of the municipality, access the program to buy Crown land as well for either seasonal cottages.
I was told by the people that I spoke to is that it is only through the municipality, only the municipality be accessed by individuals. So have you?
That's correct. I had a personal interest in this in January.
Hey, I was reading on the Ontario relating to the description of the individuals accessing the program.
Okay,
So not sure.
then share that with, share this email from this particular program.
Or it is public, it is a public offering out there if it is available to the public.
Oh, wow. So if that's available, please share it.
Very good. I think we'll also dovetail well into the plan discussion. I think it's important to, again, keep everyone's taxes.
Getting out of hand.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'll just call this to a vote. We're just accepting the report. This is so all those in favor? It is carried. I'm in favor. And on the agenda, 2024-101, the EPA electronic waste collection recycling. And Councillor Latimer. Donna, I'll turn this over to you as you're.
Sorry, I have a few pieces missing from my package, so okay. So 2021, the municipality signed an agreement with a company called RPA, who would come to take from our landfill all of the. It would take that from us without any profit to us. So we are handing over electronic waste to this company who then turn it in and collect dollars for it, which is the benefit from that waste. If we were to hire a company locally, AIM in particular, who come to get waste, we would benefit from that. They would charge us a dollar amount to bring it to where they dump it to their own facility, but we would profit from it. We get $0 right now by continuing with this agreement. And we are looking for ways to increase funds. And this is a simple way by canceling this current agreement, 45-day notice. I would assume they'd come to pick up what we've collected since the last time they came. We have purchased, as you know, through a container out there so that we can collect other types of waste. And it's my recommendation as your CEO that you cancel this agreement and the 45-day notice to be provided to ARPA so that we can profit from the e-waste that our members bring to our landfill.
All right, so is there a discussion on the resolution?
I would just say thank you very much, Don, for being creative and finding ways to turn our waste into money. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I'll call this to a vote. Now therefore be it resolved, staff be directed to notify ERPA of council's decision to cancel the existing 2021 agreement for environmental waste pickup, and that staff be directed to enter into an agreement with a local collection business who, unlike ERP, will pay the municipality for all environmental waste collected and picked up at the municipal landfill site. All those in. And I am as well, so that is. Thank you very much. Donna, I'll get you to address the next one. This is resolution 2024-102. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Morton and Councillor Manson. So again, yes, please, if you would.
So you will recall a few meetings ago, I had someone come into council to present the new Blue Box collection program that we will be participating in. We, along with another group of municipalities, 2025 September. And a part of, they will now come to collect our Blue Box waste, and we will receive funds for that, except that they will not collect waste from a number of types of organizations, including the municipality. So the municipality, places of worship, schools, daycares, we are not then allowed to collect that waste, recycling, and hand it over to this new company. So today we pay for Blue Box collection. Miller comes, collects us, then pays us, some monies just like the e-waste. In the future, we won't be allowed here with us. So campgrounds, places of worship, our own municipality, if we had daycares, if we had schools, we cannot collect that waste unless we find a way to, either through charges to those organizations. We will not be able to hand that over then to the Blue Box, the government of Ontario and a number of others in the ministries, so that they can change that regulation. So then how do we tell a tax-paying campground, a tax-paying place of worship that, sorry, you can't bring your recycling here. We want you to recycle, but we can't collect it from you. Where do I bring it? That's up to you.
Yes, I attended that meeting. That was a crazy note, and I wondered how you would even identify that. That the people at the dump would say, "Oh no, you're from the campground. You go away." That's
Well, our own. Do you know how much paper we have going into the garbage on a daily basis? So we hoped as a collection, pardon the pun, as a group of municipalities out there who were all impacted by this, that by now the government of Ontario would have made an amendment. They haven't. So these resolutions are now going to flood them from across the province.
right. Any questions?
I would suggest it's slightly unenforceable as well, but it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Donna, would you like to read any portion of this, or?
I think that pretty much summed it up.
All right. I'm going to call this to a vote. It's a long resolution. It's stating that we're going to send. Hmm? You've all read it, yeah. So I'm going to call this to a vote. You wanted to record it, vote here? No?
No.
No? All right. So all those in favor of the resolution? And I am as well, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 2024-103. And I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Grant, you look like you should move this.
I'd like to move that.
All right. And I need a seconder, please. Okay, Councillor Morton. And this is an important one that I'm going to ask our CAO to speak to, but I know that nursing homes and hospitals need PSWs, and there's training that's provided from the province for those PSWs. And we have people here that need training, and that kind of training we should get assistance with, but
And that's what the motion is calling for. We're looking to piggyback on other municipalities, and I believe St. Charles in this case. You have motioned to the provincial government to support the need for small municipalities especially, but I'm thinking of ourselves, when we bring on new people to our roads department who need this very expensive municipal equipment operator course that's coming out of taxpayer dollars today. And the government of Ontario, as you know, since the pandemic has, as the mayor says, identified a number of other sectors, healthcare sector. Why not the municipal sector? Why should they not be supporting the cost of bringing on new people to the municipal world? Hard to find people into these very equipment operator courses that are transferable skills. I mean, if someone comes to a municipality and takes this course, they can go into private sector, they can go into self-employment. So it's not a course unique to municipalities, but it's a request to the government's employment skills development trades to support this for municipalities across Ontario.
It's a great idea, for sure. Any questions or comments? No? 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 All right, I'd like to call this for a vote. Council staff to forward a copy of this resolution to the sender, to the Minister of Labor, Training, Immigration and Skilled Trades, AMO and FONOM. All those in favor? All right, I am as well, so that is carried. All right, next item is 2024-104. And this is a report from our Fire Chief, Mario LaBrush. So I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. So basically, my report tonight is focusing on the Lauder fire protection agreement. At this point, I don't support it for the following reasons. As you have it attached in your document. The first one is the CEO has mentioned in previous meetings that they were unable to compile a current list of property owners and the address list in the agreement. Neither Impact or Municipal Affairs could and would provide. They were unable to steer the office team into locating this information. I went door to door. Out of 23 addresses, there was only 10 that were home and able to give me the updated address of and owners of the properties. In some cases, there was gates in the road. The road was not accessible. There also, and many of the properties also, there was no mailboxes. So how do we send an agreement if there's no mailboxes at the property, and who would become liable to pay the cost if there was an incident that would arise at these addresses and that they have been, oh my God, sorry, I'm having a little panic attack here. Who would become liable to pay the cost if there was an incident that would arise at these addresses that have been returned if the property owner hasn't received the invoice for the services? Previous agreement have indicated that Lauder and Bolter are in this agreement, but Bolter has no addresses within the agreement. With the exception of a few addresses, not all Lauder residents have been serviced by the focus seems to be along the Highway 630 corridor, with the exception of 375 Stewart's Road. On the properties abutting municipal road service in all season by Calvin. Municipal agreements indicate water rescue, which we no longer provide to the municipality of Calvin. The fire agreement indicates services beyond fire protection, such as auto extrication, complaints, requests, inquiries. As far as auto extrication, so motor vehicle license, we currently have an agreement with MTO with recoverable costs at their hourly rates per apparatus. Fire prevention is valuable, but it's a service beyond fire protection, as mentioned below. complaints. If somebody is burning nuisance, which would include nuisance fires, home to neighbors, which it could be burning garbage, they could be referred to MNRF. Often people have asked for roof stove inspections, they could be referred to a wet inspector. Number 7, the previous agreement indicates that we, the fire department, may refuse fire protection services to fire areas in the fire departments if the fire department is unable to access the fire area due to snow, ice, tree blown down, and other barrier or man-made otherwise. This would also apply to our ability to respond to properties on unmaintained road, such as the location of 375 Stewart. The road beyond the bridge, if in any season 375 Stewart Road is not accessible to the bridge and in the road condition. It should not be listed on the property to be serviced through this agreement. As all addresses are listed on the agreement, it is my understanding that all property owners must opt into this agreement. Would it not make it void, as the municipality of Calvin has no property records for Lauder Township? And is it truly the responsibility of Calvin taxpayers to absorb the cost of data collecting for Lauder Township in order for the Calvin Fire Department to provide a service, or the municipal office to allocate time resourcing property owners an address to be sent an annual agreement and invoice of fee for services? Are the Calvin residents subsidizing the cost for Lauder fire protection? As in previous agreements, it is listed the rates for non-payment in the event of an emergency are based on the MPO, the current MPO rate, which is $5.59 an hour per truck, versus the annual fee of $120, which was increased this year by myself. Is the MTO rates the actual cost of providing this service? This was put in place on or before 2006. There are no way to recover costs from those who have not agreed on the current agreement. Again, there are no current list of property owners or address. The Calvin residents are absorbing the cost. Without signed agreement, there are no obligations for payment should a fire arise at any and we respond to. For dispatching purposes, the fire department can only provide services to all the property owners. As how do we identify immediately upon called out who is listed in the agreement until we have reached the fire station and the list is provided at the dispatch desk. And again, this agreement is an annual agreement. It expires at each calendar year. We would not be rescinding the last year's bylaw and agreement. With the recommendation to adopt by council, we should not renew it for the above reasons.
Thank you. Questions? Oh, you know what I should do? I should get a mover in the seconder.
For which one though? Because
Yeah, so let's pick up that for report and then move
I
in.
do have a question. I do have a comment
Okay.
just for the report.
Okay, well, let's,
The moving is that we accept this. report.
yes, we're moving and seconding that we accept this report,
So we can have
So,
discussion.
so,
I can use that.
okay, so Councillor Grant has moved it, and then your seconder, Councillor Morton. This is to accept the fire chief's recommendation, so you
Yeah.
moved it, so you get the first question?
I had some comments with the agreement. I was gonna wait until the agreement resolution, so this is more of just a general
Yeah.
comment right now.
Okay,
And I just, there's a lot of, there's various discussion around the table and among staff about, fire service, zoning, well, even with Lauder now, but, I think it's probably not written down, but I hope that, I believe this to be true. And, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that I just think there should be no confusion about the fact that all of our residents have access to fire and emergency services. What I mean by that is that efforts are made to access people, emergency situations in our township.
They are,
Like,
they will be.
thank you, and I just want to clarify that, just because, there's a lot of nuance and whether you live on this road or that road, and at the end of the day,
But if we get to a road and it's not passable,
well,
then the decision will be made and it will be per occurrence.
sure, okay, and then I just hope that's clear amongst the senior firefighters and whatnot, that I just wouldn't want to see a confusion lead to unnecessary harm. That's,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Any other comments on the report?
Under the current agreement, if a Calvin resident has a fire and refuses pay whatever
This is not Calvin, this is water only.
the, okay, sir.
You're actually jumping ahead to the next item on the agenda. We're just talking about her
No,
report.
I meant, I
So we'll claim the agreement.
should have said don't pay the service, and then we go to their house, we have no way of collecting anyway, because we can't tax them like they can in Calvin.
And there's no signed agreement,
So
so how,
even if you have a signed agreement, if they ignored the agreement, we can't tax them. But they do have an option. They could petition the provincial government to unify with or amalgamate with Calvin, and like Papineau and Cameron did, which is a possibility
But
For them.
well beyond.
today.
Well beyond
Yeah.
today's.
But that's up to them. It's not like we're leaving them no option. I just thought about that, it's possible.
And when they move there, they know there's some fire department.
Yeah, well, they don't have anything, they don't. Bother.
I have a question. Do they have, the homes in Louder, do they have 911 numbers?
they do.
So, okay. Is there some type of Good Samaritan rule that, that we would respond to a fire in Louder if we could? Similar to we would respond to a fire in Papineau or Bonfield, or only if asked? How does that work? I'm having a hard time hearing because I don't know if the owl isn't listening, or it seems to chop up every once in a while. It's not. I just can't hear.
The fire,
I can't.
hear me? Councilor
Yeah,
Lambert?
I can hear you, but every so often it cuts out.
That's a mutual aid agreement between Bonfield and Papineau, Cameron and Calvin.
Okay.
But I think if I may, his question was about if there was a fire, even though we don't have this agreement in Lauder Township, could the fire department respond and charge the $515 an hour?
No.
There's no agreement. It's like Matawan does not have fire protection. And Mattawa cannot, even on 12th Street, they're maybe 100 feet and they cannot go to that house.
Okay,
It's out of their jurisdiction. Without an agreement, you are not allowed.
okay. Does that answer your question, Councilor Latimer?
Yes, it does. And I know it's not our responsibility, but and efforts have been made to contact the citizens, the people in Louder. Either they don't care or they're unaware of the fact that they don't have an agreement. Like, is that how does that work? Or is that not our problem?
Pass this one and get-
Let me just, we'll close this resolution and move on to the next resolution, which is discussing the actual fire agreement. So
Okay.
all in favor of accepting the fire chief's report? Okay, so that motion, and I'm in favor as well, is carried. And if we can, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 2024-105. I need a mover and a seconder. This is about that specific agreement. So Councillor Manson, and seconded by Councillor Grant. So this is the motion on the fire chief's recommendation that the municipality not enter into or renew the fire agreement with Lauder residents. And I'm gonna open this up to discussion. So council, let's see, Manson was moved it, so you have any? Okay,
Thank you very much for the report. Very detailed, great points. You put your own around and when a door knocking, and that showed tremendous effort as well. You've done a lot of homework trying to find these addresses. They're not part of our municipality. Despite that, we had this program and you were trying to breathe modern life into it. As I go through the report with you, it makes make a lot of sense. I think you had good judgment. Having recommendation.
that's seconded by Councillor Grant. Any?
Yeah, I gotta piggyback a little bit of Robert's comments too. I mean, I support the resolution. I agree with John. I support the resolution based on what you have to say, but also you can see in our society I don't know, no pun intended, like a death by regulation. And what I mean by that is, if you have a house, from the Calvin, and we're gonna spray water on the ground at the line and make sure that it doesn't hit our town. I mean, there's gotta be some sort of flexibility here on just human decency. Be able to provide, some sort of services if they're just on the outskirts or on the outreach, or there's gotta be some sort of flexibility. I agree with the motion though, because, it makes me so nervous that we are regulating common sense right out the window sometimes. And so I don't know, is there any flexibility that we have, maybe as a chief to make a judgment call on these things, or in terms of our policies, or are you aware?
There, in your previous agreement, everybody had to opt in. So the only other way of looking at it is, if you want to opt in, then you need to make the effort to come to the municipality. But again, how do we know which resident or property owner has come to the municipality?
So when a 911 call goes in,
Yeah,
you mean?
how do we know?
And so my question would be, without the agreement, if there was a major incident outside of the boundary, would we be able to
No.
respond in good faith?
We cannot. Only for the simple reason that if somebody is hurt, who takes the liability? It's out of our jurisdiction.
And this,
I understand what you're
this
saying.
is how a society dies, but
Yeah.
yes.
I understand what you're saying, but
By regulation.
the OFM has very strict rules against that. And again, if a firefighter was to seriously be injured and we're out of our jurisdiction of a municipality, it is my call to go across the borders and I am liable.
It's good. I appreciate that. I'd just like to highlight that, because I think it's something that,
I would probably call Mayor Gould and ask permission to go across. But that's not.
wonderful, I like that.
We do with the, in Papineau, if there was something just, we could see it, like, could be. And if it's no, well, we retract.
I guess the point, Councillor Grant, is that everyone in Calvin has to get an amount of taxes. So I know at your place, for your property, you probably pay $100 or $150 a year in taxes. or maybe even a little bit more. But in that taxes that you pay for the fire service that you have in the township. So, that fire service is part of the structure of the taxation that you have to pay. And some people have trouble, of course, I'm kidding about the $150.
Okay.
Yeah.
Slightly off.
Indeed.
I gave you the wrong copy.
But the thing is you have to pay that because you have those services. And there are other townships that are unorganized and do not have those services. So by offering those services to outside of the township, what you're doing is you're paying for that service. And I suppose that if we could have something that was put to all residences and said, are you willing to have fire services in Lauder? Then that would be acceptable because that's what you're asking them to do. But right now, they're not paying, if you're paying 150, they're paying $20 a year in taxes. And if we're subsidizing that. Now, it's not just, what about Bolter Township? It's just south of Montpelier. I mean, should our fire department continue on and then go south to Bolter? And if we do it for Lauder, why don't we do it for Bolter? Or south of Papineau, I don't even know what Pentland, I think it's called. Should we go to Pentland? Go ahead.
Hey, you make great points. I'm suggesting that we need flexibility. If you had a policy for paramedics that they couldn't have 6 feet off the roadway and a patient 7 feet, somebody gets a measuring tape out and you leave the patient on the ground for an hour.
I agree.
I'm suggesting that, what I'm suggesting is that rigid regulation is insanity. And we're gonna see lots of insanity with rigid regulation and an element, and that's what we're literally as council.
Right,
And I just wanted to make that point,
right.
that we need to have, because it's not all about the dollars and cents. It's just about actually having a society and have some flexibility within our chief and, situations arise or emergencies. Guidelines. So I just want to make
Sure.
that point. I think that she makes many good, I think the report is great. I don't support this,
Right.
but, it's something we gotta consider, I think, as a council.
Marielle, any closing comments?
I do appreciate the humanity aspect of it. And it would be heartbreaking to see somebody's home being destroyed. But as a fire chief on the other side of the coin, I also have responsibilities. And without an agreement, I cannot do anything.
I have a comment. As a council, we're in the business of regulation and bylaws and motions and resolutions, and it's unavoidable. The opposite of that is anarchy. I think it's really on the owner, the homeowners in Lauder, to take care of their own business, not on us to take care of them if they don't do their due diligence.
Thank you, Councilor Lauder. Councilor Morton.
It's kind of along the same lines. The example fire chief made was Matawan, and Matawan is an organized township that has a council. They've made a conscious decision that Mattawa cannot, and they don't have fires. In this case, Lauder doesn't have a council. If there was a fire down there, it would be the MNR, I would think, that would ask,
Private property.
they would ask Calvin to go in to prevent a forest fire, which is a major concern in this area. So that I would think MNR would step in and say, can you go down there?
M&R would only go off private property. They would not respond to a house
Yeah,
until it gets to downlines.
but I'm looking at Floods Road, like,
Yeah.
and those places that are at the end of a service road, like
Yeah,
Councillor Grant mentioned, where we're sitting there looking at across the line. And so it's, M and R
Yeah,
was just
just
saying,
drive
yeah,
it.
there's potential for fire here.
Yeah.
Forest fire, we better send some people. Cause they send the bird dog out here all the time.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Any last comments? No, before I call us to a vote? Done? No, nothing? All right, so resolution 2024-105, moved by Councillor Manson, seconded by Councillor Grant. Now therefore, be it resolved, Council for the Corporation of Municipality of Calvin accept the fire chief's recommendation that the municipality not enter into or renew the fire service agreement with Ottawa residents. All those in favor? And that, I'm in favor as well. So next item on the agenda. This is 2024-106. This is for the fire chief's recommendation. Fire, I need a mover, please. So Morton, Councillor Manson. Any discussion on this resolution? No? It's pretty straightforward. So I'll call this to a vote. Council for the municipality of Calvin accept the fire chief's recommendation to hire firefighter Stephen Meacham effective March 12th, 2024. And furthermore, that the fire chief will submit to the CAO their home cell, telephone numbers, email addresses, date of hire, et cetera, et cetera. All those in favor? And that is myself as well, so that is carried. Next item on the agenda. This is 9117. This is 2024-107. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Morton and Councillor Latimer. Everyone has had a chance to read the motion. Is there any discussion? This is on the landfill, again, relating to our neighboring township. Is there any discussion? Okay, Councillor Grant.
I say, I just, I guess that's a question for staff. What sort of, is there, I'm interested in like, is there going to be any sort of warning for people as they pull up? Or is it, I believe it's just take effect immediately? Just thinking that, you know, this has been done in the past, that, I don't know, maybe, I just feel like there should be some public notice of the changes, and if the changes make sense, I just think that should maybe just be, doesn't say anything about a public consultation anyway. So I guess,
I think that's a good point.
where I'm just raising a question.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you speaking of our own residents or outside of the?
I'm
community?
speaking of our own
Oh, yeah,
residents.
I just think that's,
oh,
Yeah.
No, I don't, if you're not a non-resident, I'm just speaking of this, it is if you go, all this, you know, this word mentions, you know.
in the
the
second
cards-
last bullet point there.
The cards will be, someone shows up, you know, sometimes they're a little flexible at the landfill, these days. And in the past, it's been a practice for many, many years.
right.
And just don't think, you know, I think a reasonable public notice, and just not to cause conflict with residents, I think makes sense. It's not written in the resolution. But the non-resident, I don't have an issue.
Okay,
So I can speak to the resident. I will, depending on this discussion, go back to landfill and encourage them to use the landfill cards and to make that available. I don't think that there's any intention here to stop this community from dumping the garbage if they don't have the landfill card with them. That's not the intention. I think the intention of the motion, first, let me tell you that it came as a result of a complaint received from a taxpayer of Calvin. Why am I paying taxes for a landfill when others are using the landfill and not paying a dime to use it? That's how this came about. I had to then go access from the landfill staff and found all kinds of ways in which we can probably at a different meeting about how some things can be improved at the landfill. And one of those is how people access landfill, whether they're residents or not, but we do have a card system in place. So I think residents may be very happy to hear that they're being verified as, you know, Calvin residents, opposed to right now, I think you live here, I know everyone, and what we're learning is no one can know everyone and where they live, and every other landfill site does ID when people do push. So lots of improvements can be made in the way, but no, Dean, Council Grant, I don't believe that that's the intention. If you don't have your, and I'll make sure that to impress upon staff that that's not what they ought to be doing.
So
Yeah.
just to be clear,
Yeah.
Councilor Grant, your question is just, I show up at the dump in my sweats and
Yeah,
I don't have my driver's license and I've got my car packed as garbage. Are you
Yeah.
gonna send me home and say, oh, you don't
With
have
no
no
notice,
identification?
with no notice, but, you know.
I did want to do the outsider piece just while we're looking at this. Yeah. This weekend, because I've had to question landfill staff after the complaint came in about the process. And I heard from one of our landfill attendants on Saturday that they had a resident from Papineau Cameron come because it's too far for them to go to the dump in Mattawa. So without verifying, so staff did start to then verify who they didn't know. First day, someone not from here.
Yeah, and, you know, it could maybe be posted on the website or something.
I agree.
Yeah,
We,
just to try to do some changes we're making, so it's not so shocking for some individuals, you know. And just possibly to add, I don't know if it's required, but it just mentions, you know, non-residences for all non-residents and businesses, a double charge will hopefully there'll be some, maybe some tracking. Be interesting to know, you know, what the, you know, $5 is enough, right? What that usage looks like.
and I have to agree with you, Councilor Grant, it's that this money should be to our landfill.
It should, I believe it should be recycled back in the landfill, but that's me.
Yes,
And I do, and again, on that point, typically when we take in the tipping fees from they're going to general coffers. As the fire has been, they're going to general coffers. They're not going into an account reserved for the use of, you know, imagine, you know, the money that we would collect from whether it's fire or others from non-residents going into reserve funds to purchase new materials or to purchase, that's not happening. It hasn't happened. So that's something that will be up in the new budget year. And I did want to also mention that the double the landfill tipping fees and the $5 per bag was until we look at that use 2022 or 30. I know it's quite hard because there's a lot wrong and there's contradictory information in a lot of ways. So it's one bringing forward for some time. We've got all kinds of other emergent things happen, but this is the fee bylaw is one that we need to bring sooner than later because there are all kinds of things in there that don't make any sense right now. So this is so we had to give landfill some sort of direction. And that was based on looking at a number of just randomly pulling smaller municipalities and other areas and what they might charge non-residents. So this is just for now until we formalize it in a 2022 or 30 bylaw revision.
is that addressed?
That addresses all my questions.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? No? All right, so we'll bring this to a vote. Resolution 2024-107, moved by Horton, seconded by Councillor Latimer. That I'll just read it, effective immediately and until such time as a thorough review of bylaw 2022 0 is undertaken and until further notice, as is practiced throughout the municipal sector outside of Calvin, that landfill staff will be instructed to greet all visitors at the landfill prior to them disposing of any waste, obtain photo ID, proof of residency that indicates the visitor's address, and for Calvin residents, document landfill use cards made available through the landfill to them at all times, and implement the fees as set out in the bylaw. And for non-residents and businesses, landfill tip fees is set out in the bylaw, and since a per bag fee is not set out in the bylaw, that the individual garbage bag fee for non-residents be $5 per bag. All those in favor? And I am as well, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much. And moving right along, next item on the agenda, I believe, is in words. We can go through this. Thank you very much, Mario.
Thank you.
The Mattawa Conservation Authority, we have minutes for them? No.
Minutes are on the Calvin, or the Conservation Authority website.
Okay,
The only verbal report I'd make is that we've been talking about the pending act. And it's, and all the details have been discussed here since last year.
the next item is the Mattawa Area Policing Services Board, and of course, we've discussed that today, so we don't need to rehash that. The East Nipissing Planning Board, Councillor Grant and I have provided the minutes for the previous meeting. Anything that you'd like to add, Councillor?
Well, it's not of any general interest.
Okay. Physician improvement, I attended the last meeting. The minutes have not been approved, and I will give them to council as soon as I have an approval of those minutes. The last minutes we have are posted over the 30th. And the ad hoc code of conduct committee, Councillor Grant, Latimer and Manson, any of you wish to make any comment on? Teresa? No?
We met, I think March 2nd, 2 weeks ago, Friday. And we sent off our edits to the Integrity Commissioner. We haven't received an answer back. We had planned to meet this coming Friday, but since we haven't received a response from the Integrity Commissioner, we postponed the meeting until, I think it's April 15th is one possibility. Teresa may correct me on that.
And your minutes from the ad hoc committee are with the agenda as well.
Okay.
Item on the agenda is the number 108, 2024-108. And this is to move into closed session. I need a mover and a seconder. Move into closed session. Councillor Manson. Council for the Corporation Municipality of Calvin hereby moves into closed session at 8:15 p.m. Labor relations, employee negotiations, personal about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and litigation or administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicited client privilege, including communication necessary. All those in favor? All right, so that motion is carried. I'm in favor as well. And at 8:15 or 8:14, 8:15, because I moved in. Thank you, everyone.
No, Teresa, are we off? No.